A very good Sunday morning to you. I am Big Race Jim. You are watching Past the Wire TV. Sunday morning coffee brought to you by Shorebet Coffee, AmWager, and Pleasant Acres. I'm a little stuffed up. I know I always get comments about the wind in the background, me sniffling. So you're just going to have to deal with it for another week. I never get sick. Well, maybe like once a year. So hopefully this one seems pretty minor. It's a little bit of a head cold. But we're powering through. Hopefully you guys can power through with me. I'm in my new office. Still got a couple of things to hang on the wall. But over here we've got Palace Malice on the cover of the Saratoga special, winning the Jim Dandy. Palace Malice, my favorite horse of all time. And then right above me here is an article I wrote not too long ago for Blood Horse Magazine. So a couple other things still to go up on the walls, but really appreciate you joining in for Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV. Blockbuster card yesterday at Saratoga. Whitney Day. You had the Whitney, you had the Fourstardave, you had the test, and what was the other one? What was the other one? World Beater won it on the turf. I forget the name of the race. Anyway, and I liked World Beater too. Anyway, we're going to go through the Whitney and the Fourstardave because I thought there are some interesting dynamics in both of those races, and I want to dive into each of those. Near record Whitney Day attendance yesterday. My brother, my dad, and my brother's brother-in-law were there, catching it all live and in person. Thanks to John Stetton and the Past the Wire team for helping them get good seats, and shout out to Eddie C for helping to get them into the paddock for that first race, so they could be up close and personal to the horses. So a good day all around for them. Fun day watching from home for me. So let's dive into the 4-star Dave, and it seemed like all eyes were going to be on Johannes, the 3 horse here, and we all know he's not a front runner, obviously, but he broke left a little bit and then just did not get good early positioning, right? And like there, he's checking, and he's going to have to check again here, and then he's going to check again there. So, and again. So into that first turn, through that first quarter mile, and I remember texting my brother just saying that was the worst possible opening quarter you could have possibly imagined. And he gave you a glimmer of hope here in the next couple of furlongs, but you know, I wouldn't criticize you if you said that his race was completely over heading into that first turn. On the other side of the coin, Deterministic shot out of the gate, got into that 2 or 3 path off the hedge, and just had a perfect trip here. And you got to credit Kendrick Carmouche for getting that early positioning and really riding a stellar, perfect race. Kendrick has been riding great on Deterministic. Deterministic has been red hot lately. Miguel Clement has been red hot lately, and I thought all around this was just a really superb race and ride from Deterministic and Kendrick Carmouche. Let's rewind this. You can see him in the 8 hole here, and I just loved what he did heading into that first turn. I thought that was giving. This was a prime example of giving your horse every opportunity to win the race. Right? You got to hustle him out a little bit and get good early positioning. Right? He knew that there were probably going to be some horses behind him and to his outside, so he didn't want to bury himself all the way on the rail because, as we know, in these turf races at Saratoga, it can be really tough to make room for yourself. So I thought that was pretty genius of him to stay a few paths off of the rail going into that first turn. And look, like he is in the absolute perfect spot right here. So just a really, really great example of a rider giving his horse every opportunity to win in a crowded field. How often do we see, you know, 10 horses on the turf uh, at Saratoga? So you had to assume, Kendrick had to assume that there was going to be a lot of traffic in this race, which we saw Johannes get buried in the traffic. And look at Intellect here in the Dub Silks. Like he's got to kick out here too to try and find some running room. And it wasn't until a little bit too late that he found that running room. So if you look around, Deterministic and Kendrick Carmouche, perfect trip, really excellent ride, gave him every opportunity to win, and he was able to win the race. Quality horse, really, really heady ride from Kendrick, who I don't know if you saw on the video that our friend Rasai from the Real Players at the Book Backstretch posted after the race. It took Kendrick like 10 minutes to get from the winner circle back to the jocks room just because everybody was coming up high five and wanting pictures, and he stopped for everybody, which was really awesome. All right, let's move on to the Whitney. A lot of stuff, a lot of stuff going on in here. The rabbit, the 8, didn't break very well, and we all knew what the mission was. So you have Dylan Davis going 8 wide on contrary thinking just to rush him up, and the pace wasn't terribly fast. What you typically see is a a slower or a quicker first quarter, and then maybe things slow down a little bit. But the that quarter mile to half mile time here kind of sped up a little bit, and I don't know if that was a hindrance to fierceness or what, but he didn't have his A race today, uh, which is fine. I was nervous here. I'll be honest. I was nervous here. I thought Sierra Leone left himself a little bit too much work to do, as he typically does when he doesn't win. I always think in his races where he's been super successful, he's been a little bit closer and not way off the back. So down the back stretch, I was pretty nervous, but he's in the 6 path, 7 path here, and he just wore everybody down. So I thought that was pretty impressive. Just blew right by White Abario and was able to overpower Highland Falls here. And I thought he ran a stellar race. Obviously, I don't know that the pace had all that much to do with him winning this race. Like it wasn't a ridiculously fast early pace, right? Like, I'll rewind it here. 23 and 8, 23 and 4, and then a 47 half mile, I thought was pretty normal for grade one caliber older horses. So I'm not I don't want to say, oh, Sierra Leone only won because of the rabbit. I think he won because he's the best horse in the field. And interestingly enough, right, I remember anybody from the upstate New York area that used to watch CBS Six when Ed O'Brien was on the air. I worked with Ed for a handful of years. Really great friend and a great handicapper. And we would talk horses in the morning while we were working on the TV show together. And he would always tell me that jockeys and trainers are the worst handicappers. And all they do is they just say all the positive things about their horses. So leading into this race, you had a lot of quotes from Chad Brown saying that the early part of Sierra Leone's 4-year-old campaign hasn't been ideal, right? You had the that race at the fairgrounds where he didn't run all that well. He bounced around to Churchill Downs. So, you know, looking at this effort, you could say, well, he was he was telling us the truth. And it's interesting because he looked like a freight train here. Like he looked like the horse that we loved, and his talent was off the charts at the beginning of the 3-year-old season. Like that race that we were kind of waiting to see this year so far. And I don't think that his the rabbit. I don't think the rabbit. I don't think that had anything to do with him winning. Fierceness, on the other hand, you could you could say that Rapoli was right too. That is probably pretty stupid and losing money to bring him back, bring Fierceness back to run this year. He should have went off to the breeding shed and whatnot. And you know, credit to Rapoli. He's a gamer, right? He likes to compete, very competitive, and he wanted to bring this horse back to let the fans watch him a handful more times this year. And you gotta tip your cap to him for doing it. I don't think Fierceness lost anything in defeat here. I saw a bunch of conversation on Twitter about you know Sierra Leone being a much better horse because he's always in the trifecta, and Fierceness either wins or he finishes off the board and blah. I don't know. I don't know. Fierceness is an excellent horse. He's been so much fun to watch. His winning races are so prolific, and he just destroys the competition. Um, I don't know what happened yesterday. I mean, you think they hit the top of the stretch, and that should have been his cue to run on. Again, I didn't think that the fractions were all that fast, really. So would have expected him to have had a better late run. Hopefully, I muted the mic in time. Sorry if I didn't. Yeah, no excuse really for Fierceness. I didn't think um, he was in a good spot, right? He was in a good spot and just wasn't fast enough late in the race, and that's fine. And that's fine. We'll see him come back, and hopefully we'll see him come back. Maybe they just train up to the Breeders' Cup now at this point, rather than trying to squeeze one more race into him. It would have been cool to see Mindframe. I thought Mindframe would have had a really huge shot in this race. But we'll see him in the Jockey Club Gold Cup in a couple of weeks, and that's a win and you're in the um, for the Breeders' Cup Classic. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, I thought a really awesome day of racing at Saratoga yesterday. Good crowd, big money, like $49 million or something bet on the races, which was a Whitney Day record, um, which is great. You love to see that, um, given all the other stuff that's going on in horse racing, which I'm going to talk about right when we come back after this break. So stick around. I've got a couple of thoughts on CRWs and everything else happening in horse racing.
Go.
Is cutting off the CRWs 2 minutes to post in the win pool making a difference? Yes, I think it is. Um, I work in the world of public relations, so a lot of my day to day is spent thinking about the optics of certain situations, right? Optics is huge, and whether something is true or false or whatever, the optics of it probably matter more than anything else. And the optics of late odds changes is bad for business, right? There's a million other things that are bad for the business of horse race betting, but late odds changes, especially after the race starts, it's just bad optics. So kudos to Naira's been doing this for a bit. Delmar just decided to do it. And it's great, right? It's a step in the right direction. Is it enough? No, of course not. There's always more that can be done, like fixing the pricing, fixing the wagering menu, yada 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 yada. Right? But the optics of it was something that needed to be addressed, and they addressed it. My frustration is that it's too it's too late. It's too late. The damage has already been done, right? Like I have a group of friends that they'll play the races on Kentucky Derby Day and maybe Belmont Day. But they're not playing day to day, weekend to weekend because they don't understand the odds. Oh, well, because they're thinking sports betting. Oh, I bet this horse at 4-1. Well, why am I getting it at 9-5 now? They don't understand the power mutual system, which I'll be honest, I love the power mutual system. Um, I think there are a ton of benefits to it from an optics standpoint. Um, I think that there's a ton of benefits to the pari-mutuel system from the optics standpoint because it almost you're betting amongst yourselves, right? The track is taking its cut 20-25%, which is insane, and that's a pricing issue. But you're betting amongst yourselves rather than sports betting where you're betting against the house, and um, there's all sorts of other nefarious stuff that probably goes on the sports side as well. But anyway, I like the pari-mutuel system, but it's confusing for people who don't understand it, and those late odds changes are a big turnoff for especially my group of immediate friends that I feel like would like to play the races if they just knew how to understand it and play it with a little bit more confidence. And I think cutting off the CRWs with 2 minutes to post in the win pool certainly helps that. I think this move is way too late though, because this should have happened years ago. We've been talking about this issue for years, and they finally just took the low hanging fruit. They finally just grabbed that piece of low hanging fruit. And it should have happened years ago. And now we should be talking about the next step or step 10 that they've implemented, but they haven't. Right? It's like right now, if you're working in a company that's just now talking about um, how we can implement AI, you've already lost. You're already behind if you're not if you haven't figured out a way to incorporate AI into your day-to-day processes, into your overall systems. You're 5 years behind. Like, you need to be thinking about what's the next thing. What's the next thing that's going to happen? And horse racing doesn't do that. They're still waiting for sports betting to, throw them a life preserver, which is not coming. It's not coming. Right? We're just now seeing a few minor states in the horse racing world, a few minor circuits focused on fixed odds, or at least allowing and adding fixed odds. Behind. I remember working in TV news years ago, and they're like, we need to figure out how to get our reporters sharing stuff on Twitter. You're late. You're late. How are we going to use social media to our advantage? Social media is already owned by people who've been doing this for years. You got to think about the next thing. And that's always been horse racing's issue. They're not nimble enough, intuitive enough, forward thinking enough to know what the next thing is. And that is what's keeping them where they are. The other thing that I'll add that really ticked me off when the um, the news came out earlier this week that Del Mar was cutting off the CRWs. Everybody was like, "Okay, great," but these exacta and trifecta payouts are not good, right? Like, these don't make any sense, and I'll call it the old guard of horse racing and horse racing Twitter. You just search around, you'll know who I'm talking about. They're saying, "Well, just bet the win pool then." Like, again, this just goes back to the inability to think forward. Oh, well, they gave you the win pool back. Just shut up and be happy. No, no. What a short-sighted thing. What a short-sighted thing, because this exacta pool payout thing has been going on for years also. And people have been complaining about it, and people have been talking about it, and nothing's gotten done about it. So, yeah, I think we have every right to be upset that the exacta payouts are still going to get crushed by these CRWs. And you're just telling us to, eat eat another bag of what. So that really ticked me off. That really ticked me off that these people be grateful for the win pool. No, the whole thing needs to be fixed. I don't know what the answer is, but giving us a little taste of a scrap of a thing that should have happened years ago, and the old guard is telling us to be happy with it while your huge exacta score pays a quarter of what it should or normally would. And I understand the pari-mutuel pools, every pool is different, right? And whether the money comes in an hour, all the money comes in an hour to post or 1 second to post, theoretically doesn't matter, right? But it's an optics issue. And them fixing one part of it and telling us this is great for you, you should really love it, while ignoring the other stuff that's going on in the background, I think is, again, completely insulting to the people who provide the money to allow this industry to continue to move. So I didn't like that. So this is me complaining about, again, the optics of those comments from the old guard on Twitter, horse racing Twitter. All right, I think we'll leave it there. About 30 minutes in, I got to go blow my nose. Thank you all for checking us out this morning. Sunday morning coffee only on Past the Wire TV, brought to you by our good friends at Shorebet Coffee, AmWager, and Pleasant Acres. I'm Big Race Jim, and we will see you next week.
Go.
Here comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, heading to the final for sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Past the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.